Hello friends, and welcome back to what I believe will be the final installment in this restoration of the carved gourd calabash pipe. So the last thing we need to do is work on this cap. And as I mentioned in the previous video, probably the first video in the series, these caps are sometimes made of meerschaum, actually most commonly made of meerschaum. The second most common is going to be what we have here. Now, I've seen this referred to as porcelain, I've seen it referred to as ceramic. I'm not sure what the right terminology is for it, but it's a hard material. It has a glossy finish on it. It reminds me of porcelain, so I'm going to use the porcelain nomenclature. In fact, it kind of, if you've ever taken a bathroom sink or toilet out and you've seen the underside of it, this feels exactly like this. So I'm thinking this really is porcelain. In terms of cleaning, it's actually in quite good shape. There is a little bit of scorching here around the rim that I think will come off with no problem. The internals, the top edge there looks good, and then it becomes quite dark. And my guess is that the porcelain glaze ends at this point, and then we get into some rough porcelain. I'm sorry, I'm pointing and you can't see what I'm pointing at because I'm... let me see if I've got something I can point with. So I believe that the porcelain glaze probably ends right around that point there, and then we get into a rough porcelain area. So we'll find out. What I'm going to do. And by the way, I've never cleaned one of these, so I'm making this up. You use your own judgment if you're doing this. But I don't think I can damage this just because it is a glazed porcelain-like material. If this goes terribly wrong, I am planning on getting a meerschaum cap for this pipe at some point. So really, this is just a temporary job until I do decide to get that meerschaum cap. So to begin with, I'm going to use the same procedure that I would use if I'm trying to get some staining off of the rim of a briar pipe. And that is, I use some gauze, and I like gauze because the gauze material is it's a mesh, so you've got some abrasive quality there, but it's a gentle abrasion. And for a liquid, I'm just going to use some water. And I just want the water there to sort of lubricate things and help loosen up the dirt. So nothing more complicated than water and gauze. And we're just going to go in and rub away at that point, and you can see it immediately comes off. So that's not a problem at all. We'll go ahead and clean the entire cap that way. And now I'm going to go around the inner rim. Let's see where we get with this. And you can hear I'm trying to get some abrasion. It's interesting, there's one edge of this. I don't know if you're gonna find this as interesting as I do, but you can see that as I move around the edge, there's this one portion here that's darker than all the others. And my guess is that this pipe has been smoked. Obviously it's been smoked, but as I've said many times, it seems to have been lightly smoked. My guess is this cap was never removed by the owner, and that's why this is always where it's getting charred the most when it's lit. And in reality, there's not a lot of reason to remove this gourd, this cap from the gourd. So that's perfectly fine, the way that the owner would have treated it. Okay, so that's come a bit clean. I'm now going to switch to something a little bit more heavy-handed. I've got a piece of Scotch-Brite pad here, and I'm not going to wet this. I'm not going to really try to do major work here. I'm just going to take it down into the bowl and use it to more or less just kind of abrade that surface. Just scrubbing it out a bit. We're not going to get this down to a pure white porcelain surface, and we don't want to. It's similar to cake on a briar. Now, you've probably heard that you don't want your meerschaum pipes to cake. I have no idea if you want your porcelain bowls to cake. I would guess it's not necessary, but I would guess it's also not terribly harmful. With the meerschaum, you do want to be careful because the meerschaum can crack. And you know, the problem with cake, even on briar, is that it is a material that will expand and contract as it heats and cools, as will the briar, as will the meerschaum, as will the porcelain. And if the second material, briar, meerschaum, or porcelain, is a soft enough material that it could crack, well, soft isn't the right word, but if it can't take that stress that's produced by the cake expanding and contracting at a different rate than the briar, porcelain, meerschaum, then it will crack. This porcelain is probably not going to crack, and we don't have a very large buildup here. It's just a sort of surface coating. So I'm going to continue to play with this, and I will bring you back when it is done, and we will reassemble the finished pipe. Alright folks, so we have cleaned this about as much as I'm going to. It does seem that the porcelain coating stops very quickly as you get inside the bowl, so you're left with a much rougher surface here. But this is clean. It's darkened by the fact that it's been smoked, but there's not any real cake buildup or anything in there. I should point out, if you're doing this yourself, that these bowls, especially towards the bottom, can be quite fragile. So you want to be careful. You want to be really careful if you're trying to clean out that hole in the bottom. Typically, you don't want to try to jam a bristled pipe cleaner through that, especially on a meerschaum bowl, because you will chip it out. So you might want to get in there with something like a toothpick and just be really careful with it. And another comment, this porcelain bowl again is fairly robust and is ultimately going to be replaced, so I was a bit cavalier about how I cleaned it. If you're cleaning your own, especially if it's a meerschaum, do be careful with it. And one thing that I want to say, just to make sure that you've heard this, is anytime you're cleaning meerschaum, do not use any liquids. Meerschaum is a very porous material. It will absorb the liquid. It will take a very long time for it to dry. It will take a very long time for that liquid to get out of the meerschaum. And most importantly, if it's block meerschaum, it may not be a problem, but if it's pressed meerschaum, so this is sort of not synthetic really, but an artificially, the meerschaum powder is pressed into a block and then carved. That kind of meerschaum will, at times, when it gets wet, disintegrate. So you could actually, if you were cleaning something like this and it was made of pressed meerschaum, you may lose it if you wet it. I live in fear of somebody contacting me saying, I watched your video and I did that to my pipe and it fell apart. So I just want to make sure that you understand that, well, as they say, your mileage may vary. Okay, so we've got the cap. We have the gourd, which has dried nicely and I think looks very good now. The junction here has been polished up, at least as much as I'm going to polish it. I could buff it, but I don't want to worry about what I might do to the gourd bowl. So right now I'm just going to be happy with this. And we have the stem, which we spent quite a bit of time on. And I'm going to need to zoom out to put these together because, oops. I think by now I would know which direction zooms. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we will seat the cap back into the gourd. Nicely. And now we will place the stem back into its fitting. And there we have it. One completely cleaned, refurbished, ready to smoke calabash. And I'm really quite pleased with the way this came out. Of course, the bulk of the work really was on the stem, and that stem looks fantastic, so I'm very happy with that. I like the way the gourd cleaned up as well. I like the character that we're getting from the slight darkening of the carvings. And the cap looks nice and clean. at least on the outer surface, which is all we care about. So this is ready to smoke, and I'm looking forward to giving it a try. Maybe I'll do that in one of the weekend chat videos that I do. I'll bring you in for the first smoke, because I'm probably not going to be smoking this for a few more days anyway. So anyway, thank you very much for watching the series. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. I certainly have, and it was nice to have you come along for the ride as we learned a bit about calabashes and how to clean them. Hopefully your maintenance of your calabashes is not going to be anything near as significant as what I had to do to this one, but maybe you picked up a few tips and learned something along the way. If so, I'd like to know. If you've got other ideas on how to maintain calabashes or restore or clean them, I'd love to hear about that too, so please feel free to comment. Like the video if you did, and if you're a subscriber, thank you very much. If you're not and you enjoyed this, there's plenty of other videos, and I'm going to be doing more projects down the road, so please go ahead and hit subscribe and keep up to date on all of the projects. Thank you all. Take care of yourself, and I will look forward to talking to you again soon.